In this episode of Aging Unscripted, we'll explore the massive demographic shift happening right now in the state of Colorado and what it means for all of us. You won't want to miss learning why being the Centennial State has even more meaning these days. Welcome to Aging Unscripted, a podcast with a different perspective on aging. Here we explore a wide range of topics aimed at celebrating, supporting, and honoring the aging journey. I'm Jill Vitale-Aussem, and I am privileged to serve as the president and CEO at Christian Living Communities, a nonprofit senior living organization based right here in Denver, Colorado. And in studio with me today is Pam Sullivan, our Vice President of Communications and Philanthropy. And joining us today, we have a really special guest, and that is Elizabeth Garner. And Elizabeth served Colorado as the state's demographer for 20 years. And she recently retired from that role to focus on consulting and community work, including, we're super excited to announce, joining the Christian Living Communities Board of Directors starting January 1st. We're so excited about that. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for joining us today for this important conversation. You have been tracking and forecasting trends for decades, really, and dedicated your career to that. And now, being in the middle of this demographic shift, we're really excited to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's just jump into it. So set the stage for us, like high level. What are you seeing here in Colorado and for the future in terms of demographics?
So, big picture, it's important to understand total numbers. So we're at about 5.9 million people that live in the state.
Wow, okay.
We're now at almost 1 million people over the age of 65.
Okay.
And so that is a fairly big jump.
Almost 1/5, yeah.
And just 20 years ago, so in 2000, we were at 500,000 people over the age of 65. So we've increased very quickly in terms of that number. That has to do with the number of baby boomers that were in the state and the folks that weren't here prior to that. So, we can get into more about how that aging is really impacting the state. But that oldest baby boomer is now almost 80. So 79 years old is that leading edge of the baby boomers. And that shift into the older age groups in Colorado has really made a difference. We've been growing typically around 74,000 people a year last decade. Now things have really slowed down. We are closer to increasing by about 40,000 people a year compared to 75. So that's a pretty significant departure. And it's coming from both sides. It's coming from a slowdown in migration and a slowdown in what we call natural increase, which is the concept of births minus deaths. So we're seeing births slow down and we're seeing deaths increase simply because we've got more people in age groups with higher death rates. And the combination means that the natural increase is slowing as well as net migration is slowing.
So I really think it's the John Denver effect. That's what I call it, because everyone back in the 70s for Rocky Mountain High, it was the best kept secret. And I know, as somebody who's grown up in Colorado, we always complain about all those people need to stop coming here. But what I just heard you say is we have less people coming here, and that really may actually have a negative effect. What's your thoughts on that?
No, that's right. That's always the hard part, is that balance. Is how do you still remain attracting people to work here and live here, yet maybe not too many people coming. And life just doesn't work like that, right? You end up during, again, those kind of 70s time frame, we had a lot of people moving to the state. Actually, one of our fastest growing years was 1973. It might have been John Denver that did it. But it also was the fact that Colorado was a low-cost state at that point. And so we were attractive. It also happened to be the same time that baby boomers were in their prime moving age group.
Then who doesn't want to move to Colorado? I mean, let's be honest.
So it was a combination of factors that led to all of that happening.
Yeah. Wow.
So we really have to kind of get over and allow people to come into our state.
And and manage that well.
Yes.
Right? You can't bring people in, but then not accommodate them. So it's, as we were kind of talking ahead of time, it's all of these factors coming together. Sure, attracting people, but then you need to make sure you've got housing.
Right.
And you need to make sure that you've got daycares. And you need to make sure that you've got aging services.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of making sure that everybody understands it and is playing kind of with the same game board and understands what it takes to support people.
So with an aging population, what impact does that have on the state and our cities and our towns that we have so many older people? And we really like to, we talk a lot about at Christian Living Communities is because there's that whole silver tsunami thing, which is saying that it's a horrible disaster. We have all these older people, which we don't like that, right? But it does require a shift because we believe aging is a gift, right? And that there's so many, having so many older people means we have new wealth, really, of knowledge and experience. But there's also things that we need to make sure we're taking care of and addressing. So what are you seeing?
So the big things affecting Colorado with the aging is the fact that we've just never had a lot of older adults in Colorado. If you go East Coast, Midwest, they have always had, in terms of a relative share, older adults. Compared to Colorado, where we just really never had a lot of people here. And then you get this group of baby boomers in their 20s and 30s. And so the decade ahead of them was several decades in front of them were very small. And then you've got that big group coming in. So for Colorado, the big difference is the fact that we've never had a lot of older adults. It's funny that you bring up this silver tsunami, and I've always had discussions with people about that. And it's like, one, yes, agreed, it is not a disaster.
Right.
And a tsunami makes it feel like it's a one and done, like it happens and then it goes away. That doesn't happen either. We are going to be aging and growing that older age group from here out until the current generation, which is Gen Alpha, gets into the oldest age groups. Then we'll start to see a slowdown in the older adults. But we have a ton of people. There are more folks, younger folks, than there are older adults. And so that growth in the 65 plus will happen for the next 40 years.
Wow.
So we need to figure it out now.
Yes.
Because it's not going away. It's something that's going to be around for a while.
Yes.
So given that we're going to have this continual growth in the aging population, and we just talked about there's going to be fewer people in the state to work to support those populations, we've got a problem. We've got to be able to provide services and affordable housing, because the housing rate has really gone through the roof. What's your guidance to policymakers, people providing services? What should we be doing and thinking about now? Because we're at that first edge of it.
Right. And, first I think is recognition, right? When there's a problem, the first part is recognizing that there is one. And
acknowledge the issue. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think that that's the hardest part right now, because Colorado's really never had to worry about attracting a labor force, right? We've always been able to attract people. And not until recently have we seen that slowdown in migration. Really, it's very recent, since 2000.
And why is that, do you think? Is it cost of living?
So I think part of it is cost of living, for sure. I also think other states are competing stronger for the best and the brightest.
Okay.
Right? There's a lot that we can do to attract people. For example, higher ed. I'll be honest, both of my kids left state for higher ed outside of Colorado because it was less expensive for them to go to school out of state, because they received merit aid out of state, more than Colorado was willing to give them.
Wow.
So they lost 2 super bright kids. And
You're biased or
not
anything.
that I'm biased, but they're not coming back.
Yeah.
So Other states are attracting those bright kids away from here.
So beautiful Colorado isn't enough anymore. We have to have, it's like having a job, right? You need to have excellent benefits to be in this state as well. It's not just the environment.
The environment.
Yeah.
The environment is great. Hands down, I'm still a super fan.
Yeah, me too.
But it makes it hard, especially when you're starting out, and especially with higher ed as expensive as it is, to compete with some of these other states. And so that's one, is recognition, is that we need to recognize that we do need to still fight and compete for the best and the brightest. We also need to understand what this aging impact will be for Colorado. And, the issue is that there's a lot of people aging into the 65 plus. And a lot of times people only recognize maybe the wealthy 65 plus. And they don't need a lot of support and services. They can pay for them, they can find them. Point is, we're just going to see a lot of everything, a lot of wealthy older adults, a lot of mid older adults, a lot of low income older adults. And we need to figure out, how do we support all of them when we've got a high cost of living, we are having a harder time attracting the best and the brightest, and we've got some changes federally in terms of the impact that could also impact our labor force, knowing that we're getting a lot of support services for our healthcare industry from other countries that we were migrating them into the state.
Yes, that's a very good point. Yeah. What about when you think about housing? We have a lot of conversations with different local towns and cities, and and then you think about the schools that are closing, like Douglas County is closing some schools, right? Because they don't have enough young kids. And then we know that there are a lot of older people who are living in their homes. We know, and we're very biased, but we're big fans of community living, right? And that easy access to other people. But tell me what you're thinking of, like, how does this whole housing conundrum potentially get solved, where if people aren't leaving their homes who are older, for whatever reason, then younger families aren't moving in, and then you start having tax-based implications and services and support changes. What are you thinking about? What are you thinking about all that?
Right, and it's a big kind of bag of challenges to manage. People have always aged in place. People talk about the concept of aging in place, and I'm like, no, we've been doing that for a long time. Only about 20% don't.
Right. I think it's less than that, actually.
And so it's really interesting knowing that is what we typically do, is age in place. We have to think about, how do we do it well?
Yes.
And are there other strategies for when you want to get out, or if you want more connection, or you can't care for the unit? Whatever it might be, we just need to be, I think, more creative in thinking about strategies that's going to fit the individual that's there. Certainly, folks don't want to be told you can't live there anymore.
Right.
But also people might want to hear, what could I do instead? And how do I make that work financially? What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? Point being is that in Colorado, again, because we've got such a large group that are in that age group, they tend to be owners. How do we help them transition when and how they want to? And financially well. I mean, the worst thing to see is someone pass away without their ducks in the order, the home go into probate, sit there for years.
Yeah.
Then it's not anything. It's not a new family, a new home for a new family.
Yeah.
And its wealth is not being transferred to whoever might have needed it or wanted it. How do we do that better? How do we make sure people know
and are ready for the transition?
Ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plan it out. Because a lot of people are just, oh no, I'll just pass away and it'll go to my heirs. Well, Going into probate is not an ideal situation right now. I mean, the time delay is huge. I mean, assets can sit without use for over a year.
Well, and in talking to local jurisdictions, they're trying to find housing for new families. So if we have a house sitting there for a full year and a family doesn't want it,
Exactly.
that's just a lost opportunity.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we did another podcast. We were talking about how much place matters, and just even beyond just thinking about what happens to my home when I pass away is what matters to me in my living environment. So it would be great to find a path to help people be more proactive and just thinking about, is this the home for me?
Right.
Right. Do I have easy access to other people? Do I have, the things that I need here? Or am I going to be a prisoner in my own home?
Right.
So
put that plan in place early before you need to, because I've got older adult parents, and I would say knowing now what I know, we would have done things differently.
Yeah.
Because they were both super healthy and then they weren't.
Yeah.
And we should have put some plans in place quicker so that they could be more engaged.
Yeah. Well, and you're kind of touching on something that, we talked about the 65 plus is growing, but the really older adult is really growing too. I mean, I remember when I started at CLC more than 20 years ago, we used to put out a press release, when somebody turned 100 years old, because it was such a novelty.
Right. And was it Willard Scott used to?
Yeah, Willard Scott. And
I don't know if they still
do it or not, but it used to be, and now it's still a wonderful thing to celebrate. Absolutely. But it's a little more commonplace. I was talking to one of our residents who's 96, and she said, I think God has forgotten about me. So there's this thing that we're going to have really old. What's that projection look like for that upper older adult?
So right now, we've got about 1,300 folks over the age of 100, and it increases by about 100 to 150 a year.
Wow.
In terms of that number. Likewise, like if we look at what the forecast, in 2030, we're forecasting 18% of our population, 65 plus. By 2040, 19%. By 2050, 21% of our population, 65 plus. So as you had mentioned, that age group right now, 75 to 84, is experiencing the fastest growth of all of the age groups, simply again because of where that baby boom generation is. They are hitting smack dab in that fast growth of that 75 to 84. And as we were talking earlier, we know that tends to be now the age group that starts to look for different housing options. Like that first fall, or even hopefully before, at least in our case, it was the first fall that ended up making that choice. It was right at, I think the statistic is either 83 or 84 at the prime age to move into senior living, and both parents crashed at 83.
Wow.
And we could tell you that that is about the age for a lot of our communities as well. Yeah. Talk a little bit about, we've talked about this shift and moving forward. It's not just a CLC, it's not just an aging services thing to think about. I mean, the whole community needs to think about what is their shift in what they do. I mean, banking needs to think about it. Financial planners, grocery stores, shopping. The mayors and the representatives and all of that need to think about this a little bit. What 3 or 4 things would you say, hey, come on, people, start paying attention to this and start thinking about it?
Well, you touched on some great ones in terms of services, but in marketing, right? It's always who's your market, who's your market, who's your market. And if your market is potentially growing at 5% per year compared to less than 1%, with the rest of the population, you need to be looking at what do older adults need. And it's funny that you bring up banking and financial services because earlier this year that I was speaking with two different big groups of bankers about how do you work with the 65 plus in their own banking needs, but not just their own banking needs, but then their children's banking needs and or financial services needs. So it's looking at both. And then you go from everything from, like you said, grocery shopping to healthcare, right? I mean, it is everything in between. And remember that this group, a lot of them are digitally literate. A lot of them aren't. And how do you work with that broad spectrum of capacity? Some of them that, like my mother-in-law, I mean, she will not do anything online, especially with banking and finance. I mean, she has to go into the office, where other folks are like, no, I'm just clicking the buttons here. How do you work with both?
Yeah.
So it's understanding that client and what they need, but I think, in my mind, thank goodness for some of the online shopping, like whether it's Amazon or just the grocery stores, because that's how I am able to shop for my mom and shop for, they're not doing it, but I can do it for them.
Well, I was just yesterday talking to one of our residents who runs the gift shop in one of our communities, and she says, I am competing with Amazon now. And it was really kind of, she's like, I don't know what, so she's even thinking about what do I offer within the community for people, because online is changing the whole sphere of everything.
I always think about, despite what's happening with the demographic shift, right? The world is still designed for young people. Like every time I go to a restaurant and I have to get my little light on my phone and put my glasses on, or you can, and I mean, I'm 56. I'm already having a little bit of hearing changes along with vision. And you're like, this place is not designed for people who are even middle age and up. And so like, I do think there are opportunities for businesses to think about who do you really want to attract, and think about things a little bit differently, because there are people that won't be like, I'm never going back there again. I couldn't hear a thing. And by the way, I feel like I'm failing because I can't read the menu. Do you see that too? It's just interesting.
Completely. And I think that it is this mind shift that we all need to take. Everybody tries to look at the prime spender, right? And that tends to be a little bit younger demographic. And so they're thinking about that younger adult rather than this large group that's growing faster than any other age group in that 65 plus. So, and even then the 55 plus, it's funny that you bring up the menu thing. I had that issue happen this summer, and I was like, not shouting, but I was like talking to my husband, and I was like, I can't read. I can't see that. I even have my glasses on.
Yeah.
But it's making sure people recognize that. Because now with the total population slowing down, any industry needs to be thinking about, how do I serve my broader client? I can't just market that 25 to 34-year-old. I need to look at that 18 to 100-year-old. And how do I provide for everyone? Because otherwise you're going to be missing out. And, industries always look at, what are the growth industries? Where can I go? Well, if the whole population is slowing down, that means you need to broaden the base.
Right.
And make sure that you're serving everyone. And definitely that 65 plus, because in terms of spending, you looking in terms of needs, and then looking at their children or grandchildren, because other ways to
I saw an article about a club that was targeting kind of more middle age, 55 and up, and it I think it like opened at 5 p.m. and closed at 10. That was like, perfect. That sounds amazing. Not to generalize that everybody who's, in their 50s wants to go that early. Yeah. I sure like to go to sleep early, but anyway.
Yeah, no, just looking at all of those is really important, and working with the folks that serve them. All right, so making sure that whether it's the servers at a restaurant or somebody at the front desk of an office really does understand where people are coming from, and that a much larger share of their client base is going to be older adult. I mean, we still have a slew of young adults. I mean, I don't want this to sound like we all of a sudden don't have young adults. I mean, we still right now have more folks under the age of 18 than over the age of 65. But we're getting really close to that crossing mark. It's going to be like in maybe 2030-ish. We'll see that crossover. It's really close. I mean, it's like we're only about 250,000 different right now between the 65 plus and the under 8.
Do you have a projection? I've seen national numbers on what in the past there was 5 younger people for every older person that might need care. Kind of just what's going to happen with even though we know everybody who's older won't need caregiving, right? But the population of potential care partners or caregivers for older people shrinking. And so we're seeing that same thing here in Colorado, right?
Right. We're still, again, so one of the benefits that Colorado has is that we are a younger state.
Okay,
so we keep talking about the aging and we keep talking about these challenges. There are other states that are much worse off. And maybe that's why they've done a better job at fighting for the younger adult is because they've been facing it for a longer time.
Okay, they're more adept.
They're more adept because already at the nation as a whole, we're already at that point where there's more people over the age of 65 than under 18, but not in Colorado because we're still something like the 6th youngest state in the country. And so we do have younger adults. We have been able to migrate people here. So right now that caregiving ratio is still okay. You move us out to 2040.
Not so much.
Unless
we get on the ball now.
Right. I mean, you've brought it up a couple of times. It's planning.
Yeah.
And putting strategies in place, how to attract people into the healthcare industry, how to attract people into the aging industry, and thinking about, how do you make it cool? How do you make it fun? How do you think about a career progression?
Right.
I mean, that's how you cater and bring these folks in and say, hey, you know what? I care about you, Jill. It doesn't matter that you're 18 right now and I'm just bringing you in to provide maybe food service. How can I get you to that next level? Can I get you in a nursing degree? Can I get you into an administration degree? And I'm going to help you do it. I'm going to be there along the way watching Jill progress in my industry because I think she's cool. I think she's got talent.
Yeah.
And I want to bring her with me.
Yeah, we need to be a lot more intentional about that, I think. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because it is the best career, but we don't
more
do
than
enough.
just a scholarship program.
Right.
And I think there's
withdrawing.
cases that are going, but
Yeah. Cool. What else do you think people out there listening should know about the demographic shift here in Colorado?
We've lightly touched about the labor force, but I think that if there's anything that keeps me up at night, it is the labor force and the fact that Colorado is slow in recognizing that we're challenged. You still talk with a lot of leaders and they still don't realize that we're not competing for the best and the brightest like we used to. And it's a real recent phenomenon. And so really thinking about that strategically. How do we attract the best and the brightest, provide the services like the housing and everything else that they need, make it a place that they can age in place, make it a place where their children can age in place, can be here, and thinking about things more than just 2025. I want people to think lifetime. What do we need as an 18-year-old? What do we need as a 25-year-old? What do we need as a 45-year-old, 60-year-old? And I think it's hard for people to think about that. And I remember it, when my kids were becoming kindergartners, that's all I cared about.
Right. Right.
I didn't care about anything else. Kindergarten was it.
Right.
Not realizing, that was just 1 year.
Yeah.
And now I need to think about this next level. And that's what we need to be able to think about is how do we support people over their lifetime? How do we, the best way to have a successful older adult is to make sure that they were a successful younger adult. And thinking about all of their needs and realizing that, again, with this aging space, that we've got a diverse group
Oh, yes.
of older adults.
We really do.
Some of them will not have resources.
Yeah.
Some of them will have a ton. Some of them will have families. Some of them won't. How do we
Yep.
recognize that everybody's going to be very different in this space?
And make room for all the people who can serve all those different segments. I
Yeah.
think that's the piece too.
Well, and there was a national statistic I saw that over half of the people who are experiencing homelessness are over the age of 50 now, right? And so we've got elder homelessness. Like, we've got to address this.
Yeah.
And then Medicaid squeezes, right, which could impact Medicaid assisted living. So we've got a lot on our plate.
We've got a lot, and not just us, it's the whole state.
No, the whole state does.
And I
Got a
think
lot of work to do.
I've heard a lot about the legislative session being really one of the most important ones coming up. And I think this is one of those things that's going to put so much spotlight on what we need lawmakers to do.
I think so.
Yeah. No, and it is a slightly frustrating with the Medicaid piece that you brought up, as well as Medicare. But like the Medicaid piece, we've been projecting for years.
Yeah.
The fact that we're waiting to the last second.
Yeah, because you've been seeing this population growth, right, coming. So, yeah. What gives you hope? Is there something that's giving you hope with all this?
So, I think that people become really creative when they're forced to, and they are creative. And it's unfortunate that we wait until we're forced to be creative.
Yeah.
So I do think that we will be able to design something that works.
Great.
And we've got so many bright people, caring people that are out there looking at what are the possibilities. And so I think that that's the positive side. So I do think people are on Team Colorado and want to see Colorado do well. It's just like, how do we make it all fit together when there's all of these diverse needs? You've got roads, you've got K-12 having challenges, you've got higher ed with challenges.
Everything needs a piece of the pie.
Everything has a piece. And we've got slower growth, which also means slower job growth, which is slower income growth.
And a smaller tax base.
Right. Yeah. So maybe this will be the year. Maybe 2026 is where creativity takes off.
There you go.
That makes me very hopeful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
There's a hope.
Yeah, we've got so many great people in this state.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for making time for this conversation. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers out there for joining us for Aging Unscripted today. A reminder that aging is indeed unscripted. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming channel and share with your friends and family. This is really something everybody in Colorado should be aware of. We all can play a part in solving this, and we all should really be aware of what's happening right in our own backyard. Thank you for joining us for Aging Unscripted. Each of us has a journey that is as individual as we are. Not everyone receives the gift of aging. It is a sacred phase of life that should be honored and celebrated. Thank you.